12,000 years ago, as the ice began to recede from the planet, humanity lived in darkness. It wasn't just the darkness of night, it was the darkness of the unknown, of fear, of mystery. At night, the sounds of the primeval forest were terrifying. Predators lurked, unknown creatures moved in the shadows, and humanity hid from the dark. His name was Kale. He was only 20 years old, yet he was already one of the tribe's best hunters. Fast, intelligent, curious. But that night, Kale was restless. Something troubled him, something he couldn't explain. Kale was an exceptional hunter. His tribe depended on him, on his speed, his intelligence, his courage. But even the best hunter had limitations that fire could overcome. But there was a problem that even the best hunter couldn't solve. The night was cold, mortally cold. The fire they had was weak, nearly extinguished, and without warmth, the tribe suffered. Children shivered, the elderly huddled together, and Kale felt there was a solution, something he couldn't yet see. Kale watched the fire with fascination. How did it work? Where did it come from? How could it be so hot, so powerful? He had seen fire before, lightning during storms, volcanoes in the distance, but how to create fire when needed? That was the question that tormented him. That night, Kale slept, and he dreamed. He dreamed of fire that he created with his own hands, fire that burned bright, fire that warmed his tribe. It was only a dream, but it was a dream that would haunt him until it became reality. Morning came. Kale woke with renewed determination. He knew there was an answer, and he began to search. He left the camp with flint and a striking stone. He began to work, crafting tools for the hunt. Strike after strike, total concentration. Strike after strike, hour after hour. Kale didn't stop. His determination was unshakable. And then, in a moment that would last only a fraction of a second, everything changed. A spark, small, bright, impossible to ignore. In that moment, Kale understood. The spark. 2 stones are striking. Heat, light. It was simple. It was obvious, but no one had seen it before. No one had understood. Until now. But Kale knew that a spark wasn't enough. He needed to repeat it. He needed to control it. He needed to turn this discovery into a source of power. He started again, strike after strike, searching for that magic spark. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky. Kale continued, strike after strike, spark after spark. But each spark vanished quickly. He needed something more, something that could keep the spark alive, something that could transform it into fire. As the day progressed, Kale began to doubt. Was it possible? Was it just a fluke? Was it only a dream? He sat down, exhausted. He looked at the stones in his hands, and he thought about giving up. But then, Kale had an idea. What if the spark wasn't the fire? What if the spark was only the beginning? He needed something that could catch the spark, something dry, something that burned easily. He looked around him, and he saw the answer. Kale arranged the dry materials in a small pile. He took the stones again, and he began, strike after strike, spark after spark. Each spark fell onto the dry fiber, and then the fiber began to smoke. White smoke, light, but it was smoke. It was the beginning. But Kale knew the flame was fragile, very fragile. He needed to protect it, to feed it, to care for it as if it were a newborn baby. Slowly, carefully, he added more dry fiber. The flame grew. It became stronger, brighter. And then, finally, the fire blazed. It was no longer a spark. It was no longer a fragile flame. It was fire, real fire. Fire that Kale had created with his own hands. Fire that would burn, warm, and protect. In that moment, Kale understood. He had changed the world. Kale couldn't let the fire die. He needed to take it back to the camp. Carefully, he placed the fire in a bark container, protected, safe, and he began the walk back. When Kale reached the camp, the tribe woke. They saw the fire in his hands. They saw the bright flame, and they understood. They understood that everything had changed, that the world would never be the same. That night, 12,000 years ago, humanity changed.
It wasn't just a discovery, it was a transformation. The fire Kale created would warm generations, it would protect communities, it would allow civilization to flourish. A young hunter, on a cold night, had lit the flame that would burn forever in the history of mankind.